it was so beautiful. And in that moment, I remembered all the hard work, all the times I went to Precious Blood to solicit for letters of recommendation, like the amount of discipline and like focus it took just in that one moment with my mom. I remembered, and it was so relieving. Like it was so... Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching my video from last week that was about colorism and a bunch of girl stuff that Lynn Libala and I spoke about. I put up a question, a poll on my Instagram, and I asked you guys whether you want me to talk about a day in my life at Yale, or if you want me to talk about the application process to colleges in the US if you're from Kenya. And I think this would generally apply to any international students. The application process is very similar to American students, but then when it comes to applying for financial aid and other scholarships, as well as studying for your ACTs, I feel like some of those things will be different, and that's what I want to focus on in this video. Also, if you hear any weird sounds in the background, as usual, it's Chanzel, because she owns the house. In fact, she pays rent, and I'm just couch surfing, and that's why I live with her. Honestly, that's how it feels sometimes, because she can be very frustrating. Like, she peed on the couch today. She's never done that. Yeah, I don't know, maybe she's getting back at me because I ate chicken in front of her and didn't share. Anyway, moving on. So the first thing I want us to talk about and like configure ourselves is, if you're thinking about studying abroad, it's because you're in Form 3 or you're in Form 4, and you're thinking maybe you want to, I don't know, pursue something that Kenyan schools don't offer, or you just like to travel, you like the idea of being independent and like studying outside of the country, then this video is for you, so keep watching. And I'm gonna just like start by talking about my own personal story. In Form 3 and most of Form 4, I had no idea that I even had plans like to study abroad. I think that in Form 4, I decided to start off like at Brookhouse doing the International Foundation year, mostly because my brother had done it and he'd started studying abroad, and it looked very nice. It seemed like he was having a good time. And I was just like, yeah, maybe this is something that I want to do. Initially, I was going to do electrical engineering at Nairobi University. I'm now on my way to med school here. But basically, I didn't know that I wanted to study abroad, and that's why I took a gap year between high school and then I applied for a whole year, and then I got in. So I finished KCSE 2014. You guys saw me on the newspaper. I did well for myself, and I'm still so proud of who I was in high school. I still kind of like aspire to be that person, just because I was so disciplined and focused. But then also life was very simple, so maybe that's why it was so easy. But 2015, the end of 2014 and a bit of the beginning of 2015, I was at Brookhouse doing the International Foundation year, where I studied, I still thought I was going to be an engineer, so I studied math and further math and physics, which went, fairly well. But then I eventually figured out that I'm still not sure. And this is the point, and I think I talked about this in my second video. If you haven't seen that, go watch that now. Pause this, go watch it. Basically, I talk about the liberal arts education and why coming to the US for higher education, like for a college degree, is a good idea if you're coming from Kenya or any African country. Because it allows you to kind of figure out what you want for the first 2 years, and then you declare your major, and then you graduate like with your diploma saying whatever major. But then those 2 years, like the initial 2 years, I think were very beneficial for me, because I got to just like learn a lot of things in different fields and figure out what I'm genuinely interested in. So now that we've kind of figured out where we are now, you're probably in Form 3 or Form 4. Let's think about deadlines, right? Let's think about whether or not like your school schedule, like whatever calendar you guys follow, whether that works for you right now. So I have my computer with me right now, so don't mind if I look away for a quick second. I've just been looking up stuff for you guys so that I make sure I'm giving you, correct facts. But for 2019, it says that the Common App goes live on August 1st. I'll explain what Common App is later. And then early decision deadline is November 1st, and then the regular decision deadline is January 1st. And this is typical. This is exactly how mine went, how my application process went. So when we think about going to the US for education, the first thing we want to think about after we've looked at the deadlines is ACT exams. So the ACTs are basically a bunch of examinations that are timed. You do them like really fast. I don't think I'll have enough time in this video to kind of like comprehensively go over ACTs, but you have to study for them at least for a couple of months and decide whether or not. So ACT 1 I believe is math and English, and then ACT 2 are subject tests. So you can decide to do history. Unfortunately, that's like American history, so we can't do that. I don't know if there's geography, but then there's certain like subjects that we can't do because like it's all based on like American high school curricula, and so therefore like we can only do like, let's say, math 1, math 2. We can do physics because we learn physics. We can do pretty much all the sciences. Chemistry, biology, I'm pretty sure you can do. So the only like tough things are the humanities, like, which is fine. Most people are usually okay. And this gives you a rough idea. Like if you're in Form 3, okay, we choose our classes in Form 2. So unfortunately, if you're in Form 3, then I don't know if there's any high schools in Kenya that don't allow you to take any sciences, but I know in PB we had to you had to have 2 sciences. I think chemistry was compulsory, and then you had to choose between physics and biology, if I'm not wrong. And I did all 3 sciences. Oh, thank the Lord. Yeah. Anyway, so that ACTs. Another thing about ACTs is it's so hard. Sorry, I need to adjust myself. I'm on my bed. It's so hard for you to find like good ACT textbooks in Kenya. And this is where like I thank the heavens, because I did the program called ESEP. Again, I talk about it in my second video. And they had textbooks there, and everything at ESEP was for free. And I'm so grateful to the program, because applying to the US independently can be very difficult, because it's a myth. Like a lot of people don't know about it. They think it's like very expensive. I'm going to talk about financial aid and scholarships in a moment, but if you're doing this, you need to commit to it. You need to like open a journal, like write down your deadlines, commit to like studying the ACT textbooks and doing problems and like practicing every day. Like it's going to be hard if you're doing this independently, and I want you guys to understand that. Now that we have talked about the ACT exams, you can look up like all of this. Also, another thing that I forgot to say is Google is your friend. If you're going to be applying to college, I think a couple of like, I don't know how many decades ago, applying to college in the US was done, using hard copy. And I remember even some people in ESEP, like a lot of classes before mine, they applied to college like hard copy. Like you write it down on a piece of paper and like you mail it to the actual school, like abroad. I don't know how many weeks it took to get there, but we're privileged like to have the internet these days. So make sure you make use of the internet. Just Google like the ACT exams. There's so many like practice problems online, like I think with Quizlet and all of these things, but just make sure that you check the deadlines like for when the ACT is done. And also like the ACTs can be done in different towns. I don't know if Mombasa and Kisumu do have ACT taking centers, but I know that in Eldoret there is one, and in Nairobi there are plenty. And then, so ACTs are the first exam that you have to do. The second exam is TOEFL. TOEFL stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language. So a lot of people are like, so why are we taking TOEFL? Because like we are instructed in English. And usually like this, and this is what my advisor when I was applying to colleges told me, that number one, like our English programs are not very strong. Okay, now that I'm in the US, I'm just realizing like, whoo, child, our education system has a long way to go. I just feel like they didn't emphasize that much like reading. Like we read a lot, like, but to pass exams, but we never read to like learn critical, like, you know, like to critically read, like to analyze what you're reading, understand it, and be able to like, you know, reproduce it in another way. I don't know, like I can't explain like what it is about the Kenyan like education system when it comes to English and writing. Maybe that's a separate video that we should do, because like on a personal level, like whenever I get essays from Kenyan high schoolers saying like, please edit this for me, I can always tell like who's taken time like outside of the curriculum to do their own personal like reading and like self-improvement and English practice, as opposed to who's just like relying on whatever we've been exposed to in our high schools. And that's very important. Like you're going to have to be very proactive like during this entire process. Okay, so again, like for TOEFL, a lot of resources I think are going to be online as well, but you can always go to Textbook Center or whatever outlets there are in different cities in Kenya and find books that would help you prepare for TOEFL. And TOEFL, most of it is just like reading paragraphs, comprehending them, and like answering questions about them. And there's also like a listening exam, so it's gonna like take a lot of like practice and verbal practice. But if you have a smartphone, honestly, you can just like record yourself and, you know, practice in that way. Read a paragraph, I don't know, try and memorize it, or the main points, and then like say it back again and like correct yourself. Find a friend. Like, just because we don't have resources, guys, we can get creative. Okay, if you have a smartphone and you have the internet and you have access to a computer, you can do this, my friend. As long as you're hardworking and committed to the process, you can do this. And I'm here to help you guys. If you need essay editing, if you need advice, blah blah blah, you guys have my email address. You can always email me. And you know that, even though I can get really busy, and I'm sorry. So after we've, you know, taken aside the ACTs and the TOEFL, which admissions officers are going to be looking at like in your application, the next thing that you want to start thinking about is, what do your grades look like? And I mean from, I don't know if they don't look at primary school, from Form 1 hadi Form 4. Because guys, that transcript that you keep looking at after every end of term, you're getting this grade and you're not trying to like put in work to improve it, it matters. And like academics generally do matter. I know that we're getting into we're getting more exposed, like, and people are being more creative in terms of like making a living. But then if you find that like academia is your thing, and if you find that like if you exert yourself you can do better, don't hold anything back. Exert yourself, do the best you can, because there are so many opportunities that come like with education. And so I just like want to encourage you, if you're in Form 3 and you have a year left, do something about your transcript if something can be done. If you're in Form 4, I'm thinking that if you're in Form 4 right now, you've just started and you're going to probably start your application process next year, I believe. I don't know. Wait, I'm getting so confused because like the way Americans like talk about the year and the way we talk about it back home is so different. Yeah, you just started Form 4, and because KCSE happens like at the end of the year, you're going to have to wait for your KCSE grade for you to be able to use it in your application. But if you feel like you're up to it, I know people who actually use the August holiday to study for their ACTs and then applied and then just told the school that you're waiting for your KCC grade, especially since these days KCC grades come out really early. You can always like add things to your Common App after. I think you can always like say there's this thing I'm waiting for my ACT score, I'm waiting for blah blah blah, and I think you can always like give it to them, because the deadlines are January 1st, and I'm pretty sure actually you don't even have to do that, because if the deadline is January 1st, I don't recall when KCC results come out in Kenya. Please comment below, because I know most of you know, but if they come out in December, then you're fine. Yeah, so I would, if you're in Form 4, I would actually think about applying this year so that you don't have to wait like a whole year and a half to join a college in the US. Yeah, whew, I wish I'd done that. I wish my KCC results like would come out early. Anyway, the next thing after exams and your transcripts and your academic progress throughout your 4 years in high school is writing essays. So how do you apply? Like, how do you choose the schools that you want to apply to? There's this platform called Common Application, and it's basically a website. You go in, you register, you have your email address, and you have your password, and you have all of that. And then you select your schools, and you put the schools that you want to apply to. Obviously, you have to consider whether or not the school offers financial aid. If you come like from a background, like, I mean, it's easy, like go online, find out how much the school that you want to cost. Like for Yale, like it costs I think upwards of $65,000, like that's like 6.5 M. And we'll talk about financial aid in a second. So you look at that, and if your parents or if whoever's supporting you, or like you're supporting yourself and you're able to pay the full amount, then maybe you don't need to apply for financial aid. But then most Kenyans like do, because our education like is nowhere near like that expensive. So when you go up, like when you're looking at like what school, and I'll make a separate video about like how to choose your schools as soon as like momentum picks up and like people are actually like doing the applications. And this is a process that will require like a lot of trust and a lot of confidence like in yourself. It's a very trying process. Anyway, so you choose what school you want. Like you could think of like the city. If you've been to the US, maybe you know like what the cities are like. I had never been, so I had to like guess or look up pictures or videos or blah blah blah. But look up the school culture, look up like specific programs that the school has. Like maybe if you're pre-med or you're into engineering, maybe some schools have like partnerships with organizations like NASA. I don't know, like just do a lot of research. Personally, I don't know if I still have it or I gave it to one of my mentees, but I had a whole book. I'm someone who just loves to handwrite everything, but I had a whole book, and I had like a couple of pages, and I put tags on each page to signify each school, and I went like from website to website to website, like the pre-med blah blah blah, or the biology department blah blah blah, and I like would write stuff down just so that I know, but then also so that like in my application to the school, because a lot of the essays like involve like, why do you want to come to Yale, why do you want to go to Harvard, why do you want to go to like Cornell or Hamilton or whatever college. And it's good for you to know like the specifics of those programs, and even like during your interview you can like ask questions about those programs, etc. So basically, when you're filling out schools in your Common App application, and I can add a link to like a good video I saw explaining like Common App. There are a few things that as Kenyans or as international students in the Common App website, you may not really be able to answer, or you may not understand how to answer very well, just because the language that they use is very specific to American high schools. But we can go over that again like in a separate video, or you guys can ask me specific questions in the comments below. So moving on from that, let's see what the next thing is. Yeah, writing essays, guys. So after you filled in the schools, you're gonna know exactly what the schools require from you. Some schools just require that you write the Common App essay, and the Common App essay is like you choose one of 5, I believe, and it's like pretty long, and it's the one essay that's sent to every single school that you apply to. And then other schools have other writing requirements, some of which are mandatory, some of which are optional, and depending on whether or not you're a strong writer, or depending on whether or not like you want schools that require lots of writing, I don't know. I would just say, if you plan early enough, and if you do enough research, and if you're passionate enough about the process and the school that you're applying to, the number of essays or like the complexity of the essay should really not deter you from applying. Like, they're not looking for like, oh my god, she knows so many new words or so many ACT words. No, they just want you to express yourself genuinely. And as an example, I'll use my application as an example. I talked about feminism, obviously, and I talked about like my culture and my country, and how like feminism really wasn't a thing. I don't even know when I first like started thinking about feminism as a concept. I really have no idea how this thing happened. Anyway, so I just talked about how I considered myself a feminist because I believed like in the education and empowerment of women. I talked about like a few bad experiences I'd had, just growing up, and I also talked about like this one time there was an accident and I wanted to help this guy. He had both his legs amputated, and I don't know, I talked with a lot of passion. Basically, like, I really opened up myself to the admissions committee, and I allowed them to get to know me through my words. Of course, I got a lot of help. Shout out to Alan from Kensap. This man literally edited my essays, I think the day of Christmas. Like, people, you're also gonna need a strong community around you. Like, if you know people, if you know alumni, if you know and people who are linked to organizations like Equity, Wings to Fly, or ESEP and Kensap, like, reach out to them. Like, the key is reaching out. I have literally, even me during Christmas, by the way, the following year, I remember there's this dude who I literally sat down and I edited, I don't know, 20 something essays. Bro, I was just like, wow. And it was Christmas, my whole family was downstairs, my grandmother, my aunties, my nieces, my nephews, everyone was downstairs, and I was upstairs working on this dude's essays. And that's how much I'm committed to this process. But these days, like, depending on like who you are and like where you're from, I charge a couple of dollars per hour for my time, just because I'm getting more and more essays, and it's something I enjoy to do. But I also don't want to sell myself short, in the sense that like commit a lot of time to something that I'm really not being compensated for. And so we can talk about that later privately. Email me if you have any essays or any like documents you want me to look at for you. Yeah, and I'll just like give you a link or a PayPal or like blah blah blah. Anyway, so essay writing is going to be very challenging, just because of our system, especially if you went to like the 844 system. It's gonna be just a teeny bit challenging. But then if you're passionate, if you read I think some schools post their accepted essays, like Johns Hopkins, I'm pretty sure, has an entire like website dedicated to dedicated to like essays. I'm not pretty sure about that, but again, the internet is your friend. Okay guys, okay, just look anything up and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find it. So we've talked about ACTs, we've talked about Toefl, we've talked about common application. Now let's talk about money. So every time like I talk to people and I'm like, oh, where to go to school, and I'm like, Yale, I'm like, oh, you must be so damn rich to be able to afford that school. I'm like, no, actually a shit ton of my school fees is like paid by the university because of financial aid, and like that's the beauty about these institutions, like that they invest in their students, and they understand that not everybody who's applying is able to afford the full amount. And I think that's something that, wow, if there's something that you can just take and share with other people, like people who aspire to go to, you know, institutions like Yale and Harvard and blah blah blah, please just share that with them, especially like if they're hardworking, and they're like very deserving of this opportunity, and they just think that the only thing standing between them and the opportunity is money. Let them know that there is financial aid. Like if you know how to access it, then do so. So for American students, they use FAFSA, and basically I think it's like, you know, it's like federal aid that's given to high school students. But then because we're international students, and I think it's because like financial documents that we have like don't really align with Americans like documents. I don't know what the deal is. Oh, and also because we're not citizens, all of that, we use CSS. And CSS is College Scholarship Service. Yeah, so CSS stands for College Scholarship Service, and it's basically a website similar to FAFSA, but you go on and you basically provide documents, financial documents that show like, let's say, you know, how much like your family can support you, and you know, whether or not you can afford like what chunk of what. Basically it determines how much financial aid you need, and like whether you need it at all. And using that information, they're able to calculate how much financial aid they will give you. And it's not rare for you to hear of like Kenyan students coming to schools like Yale on a free ride. Basically they pay all your school fees, probably like even give you a stipend for like your flight here. So the key is just make your application good, like make sure you're working hard in high school and you're getting those good grades. Make sure that you're writing great essays that are expressive and like representative of who you are, and you know, make sure you're on time in terms of like planning and, you know, doing research on application on schools, and like you should be fine. I think the one important thing I forgot is letters of recommendation, guys. This was hard for me. This was so hard for me. I remember I don't think I even got one from my principal, because like just the idea of going to school in the US, it's such, I just think it needs to be demystified. I don't know, like I think I need to come to Nairobi and just hold a seminar. I'm just like, guys, come here, let me tell you, okay? Including instructors and teachers in high schools. Okay, I know that a very like severe catch-22 in this case is brain drain. Like we don't want our Kenyans, our bright students leaving Kenya and staying in the US, but like personally I consider myself like a global citizen. Like I don't consider myself like belonging to Kenya or belonging to the US. I go where I want to go, to be honest, and like that's what I told a lot of people who questioned my decision to leave the country. And of course I have plans to like build like forever, like in public health, or like, you know, in medicine specifically. I have plans to go back and like elevate Kenya in whatever way I can, but I just don't think like your dreams should be. And also just, you know, I just think of the country itself and like corruption and like how many Kenyans try and we work hard, like we work for our money, people hustle, people struggle, like people die trying to make a living in Kenya, and there's just so much corruption and so much wrong going on in the country that, and I think of like political activists like Boniface Mwangi, and I feel sad. Like I genuinely feel sad, because I'm like, how do you make that decision, like to leave your country where professors are on strike for months, doctors are on strike for months, like, and I know that this sounds like very privileged because not everybody is going to be able to like leave the country and, you know, go get a better education and everything. But what I'm saying is that if you have the interest, if you have the passion, the capacity to do it, those things should not stop you, and that like you need to realize like you are an individual, and like if you have certain goals to like achieve certain things, do it. Like you'd rather like, you know, benefit from a good institution and like get the training, get the experience, the exposure, and then come back and do something like good with it, as opposed to like stay in a situation, like stay in institutions that you don't feel passionate about, and then hope it gets better. Because it's not isolated. Like it's not like just you and your instructor who's unhappy that you're leaving, or you and your parent who's unhappy you're leaving. It's bigger than that. Like it's a whole like system, a whole country like being run by, you know, people like who will pilfer, and it's bigger than just like you. So that's why I'm comfortable like saying that like I'm happy I made the decision to come, even though being here has its own challenges, as you guys may have seen on my Instagram. But the point is, if you're interested and if you're willing to do it and you're passionate like to do it, do it. In terms of letters of recommendation, and like the reason why I went on that entire like detour about whether or not you should study abroad, is a lot of people who I thought would give me letters of recommendation did not give me letters of recommendation, probably because they didn't believe like in this step that I was taking, and that was like very disappointing. I ended up having to get is it 2 of my letters of recommendation from Brook House, even though I had left the institution, as opposed to Precious Blood, where I had been for 4 years and I thought I would get more support. And I'm not like upset at my teachers like who I asked for letters of recommendation. I'm basically just like disappointed that it's not something that like people practice more often. Like it's such a hustle, and usually like when you go get letters of recommendation from certain instructors, they'll tell you to write one like for yourself, and then you send it to them, like they'll edit it, and then, you know, and I'm just like, bro, you've known me for 4 years. Like Tana in PB, like we used to live like with the teachers like in the same compound. Like for 4 years you've seen me here for months. You know my character, you know my grades, blah blah blah. Surely you're telling me you can't sit down and write a few words to, you know, like tell Yale University that I'm like worthy to be in the institution? Like, and that, you know, writing culture it's just not a thing back home. I really wish it was. But I'm just telling you, if you're applying to the US, you will have to really hustle for those letters of recommendation. And like honestly, don't finesse them. Like try your best, and this is where, you know, like if you're in Form 4, try create really good relationships with your teachers, especially your class teachers, your subject teachers. I remember my class teacher wrote me the most beautiful letter of recommendation. She, you know, obviously like she was kind enough to send it to me. She was kind enough to send it to me like after it got submitted, but I was just like, girl, oh, like I love you. Like guys, I don't know, Mrs. Maura, if you ever see this YouTube video, I love you, because you were just, I don't know, you were so kind and you taught me so much. Wow, I really never thought I'd have an online platform to like, you know, tell my teachers from high school how much I love them. But I still remember our conversations outside the staff room. I still remember how you encouraged me. You used to teach business studies, and there's this one time you asked me to stand in front of the class and talk about my relationships, or like basically lead a girl talk session. I had so much fun in high school, like just because you were my class teacher, and thank you for that. Anyway, form good relationships with the instructors. They are more likely to give you a good letter of recommendation, and also do well in their classes. Again, this goes back to just like making sure you're doing your best. So after you submit your application in January, you're gonna have to wait all the way until March, maybe about 3 months, and yeah, and then you get your decision and they let you know. For Yale, I remember, okay, let me just tell you guys the story of like how I got like my acceptance notification. I had been rejected by maybe 6 schools. Guys, I don't know what was going on. I don't know if it's because of financial aid, and like they couldn't afford to give me aid, but then I was stressed. So I had just come out of the shower. I don't know if I'd forgotten, Oh no, showers calm me down. Showers and bathtubs baths calm me down. I was probably in the shower because I knew that I was about to get the notification. And my dad had traveled. My mom was in her room sleeping because they come out at like odd hours in Kenya because of the time difference. So I sat down at my computer. Guys, holy shit, this was just the scariest moment. I sat down on my computer and I kept refreshing the website because there's this portal you log into, and then, you know, it tells you your decision like is here. So you basically you refresh, and the Wi-Fi was slow, but you know it worked, and then it was like right there, the decision has come out, you have to press it. And so Yale does this thing, like there's this song, Bula Bula Ba Wa Wa, we are Yale, and I didn't know that it would play, so I was like, so I pressed it, and then it just like started, and I think there were like some like balloons or whatever, and I just saw the word congratulations, and I began to scream. Like it was just madness, like, and I was naked. So I just come out of the shower and I was in my towel, but like because of the excitement I dropped my towel, and my mom heard the scream, and you know, she was like obviously freaking out. So I ran down the corridor, burst into her room, and she was there sleeping, but then like I was also screaming, so she was like startled and waking up and everything. She's like, what is it, what is it? And I'm like, mom, I got into Yale, ah! And she was like, what? Ah! And we were just like, we're crying, like we just embraced, like I was just on her bed crying, and just, it was so beautiful. And in that moment I remembered all the hard work, all the times I went to Precious Blood to solicit for letters of recommendation, like the amount of discipline and like focus it took just in that one moment with my mom. I remembered, and it was so relieving. Like it was so, like I don't even know how long we hugged and cried. It was just so beautiful. And my mom knows, because like my mom is just so supportive, and I would sit next to her and I would write essays, and I tell her my ideas, and she'd always be excited about them. Mom, I'm here because of you, thank you, and I love you so much. So don't be scared, don't be intimidated, just, you know, take it a day at a time, but make sure you're keeping yourself accountable in terms of time. And again, if you have any questions, comment below. Any comments, comment below. And like this video, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel if you want to be notified every time I put something up. And bro, if you're from Kenya and like you need any advice on this, I am your girl. By the way, I have break between the 8th and like the 25th. It's this like really long period, and I am all yours. So if you have questions, if you want me to edit essays, if you, I don't know, have like whatever questions or like concerns, please hit me up. I'm like more than ready, like more than willing to engage with you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and again, give this video a thumbs up. Bye.